The first men chosen to be astronauts were not the Mercury 7, but instead 9 pilots that the Air Force announced on June 25, 1958, as part of the Man in Space Soonest program. This was the early era of the space race, and the Soviet Union was just as eager as the United States to reach space during the Cold War. Americans just wanted to get there sooner. The Man in Space Soonest goal was to put an astronaut in Earth orbit in October 1960. The group members were Neil Armstrong. He would be the only one from among this group to become a NASA astronaut. William Bridgman, a test pilot who on August 15, 1951, set a world speed record of Mach 1.88. Scott Crossfield, a naval officer as well as test pilot, who was the first to fly twice the speed of sound. He accomplished the feat in 1953. Ivan Kinchlow, who received the status of flying ace during Korea. He died a month and 1 day after being selected, when ejecting at too low an altitude as his F-104A crashed. John Mackay, a World War II pilot. Robert Rushworth, who fought in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and who rose to the rank of Major General in the Air Force. Joseph Walker, a World War II pilot and experimental physicist. He died in 1966 when his F-104 Starfighter collided with another jet at 25,000 feet in altitude. Alvin White, who made the first 2,000-mile-per-hour flight. Robert White, who would rise to the rank of Major General in the Air Force. Man in Space Soonest was conceived toward the end of NASA's predecessor, NACA, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. President Woodrow Wilson created NACA when he signed the Navy Appropriation Act in 1915. For more than 4 decades, NACA was involved in the development of aeronautics. Initial research focused on the United States catching up to European military technology. In the civilian sector, NACA early on proposed a Commerce Department Bureau of Aeronautics to inspect aircraft and license pilots. NACA also established a post in Paris to monitor pre-World War II activities in Europe. Before World War II had even ended, NACA was proposing jet aircraft. To design and build an experimental plane, the Air Force awarded a contract to Bell Aircraft Corporation. The result was the X Series, in which Captain Chuck Yeager at Edwards Air Force Base on October 14, 1947, broke the sound barrier. 1958 would be a pivotal year for America in the space race. On April 2nd, President Dwight D. Eisenhower proposed a civilian agency, NASA, to the Congress. On June 25th, the Air Force's Man in Space Soonest was announced and outlined in 4 phases. The first, Man in Space Soonest, involved orbiting a ballistic capsule, first carrying instruments, then primates, and finally a man. Man in Space Sophisticated planned for a heavier capsule capable of a 14-day flight to be put into orbit. Lunar Reconnaissance would soft land on the moon with instruments, including a television camera. Manned Lunar Landing and Return would orbit primates around the moon and then send men to the surface. Paul Haney, a journalist on the ground floor at NASA, and who set up the procedures for how the agency dealt with the media as well as the public, told of his frustration over trying to convince Langley, where NACA had been headquartered, that space was America's future. Haney included his experience during his oral history given at the International Space Hall of Fame in Alamogordo, New Mexico.
I remember a fellow named Henry Reed visiting with him 6 months after I went to work for him. I went down to Langley, and it was like a trip to Rome. I was ushered into the presence of this great fellow who was the director of the Langley Research Center, which was it. And he sat down and he closed the door, and Harry Colcom, who became managing editor of Av Week, was with me. We'd just gone to work for NASA as information. And Reed sat us down and he said, "Now look, this man in the can stuff, that's just idiotic." He said, "No, we somehow have to get, I'm doing everything I can to get this Mercury program." And the Mercury program, that was his home. It was right there at Langley. But he told me that he was doing everything in his power to get this thing neutralized and get it pushed out so it could be, it wouldn't be a serious effort. And I came out of there beating my head. He gave me about 45 minutes on the wonders of flight. Finally, he and the others had accepted the airplane, and they thought that was the greatest thing on. But this space stuff, forget it.
Man in Space Soonest was canceled on August 1st, 1958. NASA opened for business on October 1st and acquired NACA's 8,000 employees and $100 million appropriation. A new term now replaced Man in Space Soonest, and that was Project Mercury.